Follow Famous and Gravy on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to Famous and Gravy early and ad-free now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
Don't miss Good American Family.
We have a little girl here for adoption.
She has dwarfism.
Starring Ellen Pompeo and Mark Duplass.
Something is off.
She's just a little girl.
You think she's faking?
She has adult teeth. There are signs of puberty.
Inspired by the shocking stories that tore a family apart.
I don't know what's going on.
How old are you?
You should get a lawyer.
You have no idea how those people hurt this girl.
The Hulu original series, Good American Family, premieres March 19th, streaming on Hulu.
At the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event, get deals so right, it almost feels wrong. Now's the best time to get that Hyundai car or SUV you've always wanted. Plus, every new Hyundai comes with America's Best Warranty and 3 years or 36,000 miles of limited, complimentary maintenance. Don't think you can get away with all that? Think again. But don't wait. The Hyundai Getaway Sales Event is going on now, so visit your local Hyundai dealer today. It's a great day for a new Hyundai.
This is Famous and Gravy, biographies from a different point of view. To participate in our opening quiz, email us at hello@famousandgravy.com. Now, here's the quiz to reveal today's dead celebrity.
This person died 2006, age 44. He was an ebullient staple of American talk shows ranging from The Tonight Show with Jay Leno to Live with Regis and Kelly.
I got nothing.
Ed McMahon?
Not Ed McMahon, who did not die at age 44 in 2006.
Oh, yeah, you're right. He was older.
His American-born wife was his business partner and on-screen co-star.
So this tells me he's not American. Otherwise, I don't know why we would have said that.
Regis Philbin?
Not Regis Philbin, who I think also lived past age 44. But
oh, my God. Yeah, you're right.
His fame engendered books, action figures, and interactive games.
Oh, God, this is killing me. In 2006, at 44?
This is perplexing. An action hero and a talk show host died at 44 with... Okay, so I guess Clark Kent is out. That's, not going to work.
For a time, tube-watching pub crawlers played a drinking game, hoisting a glass every time he said, "Crikey," or "Isn't she a beauty?"
Oh, the Crocodile Man. What was his name? Steve Irwin.
Steve Irwin.
Today's dead celebrity is Steve Irwin.
It's just that I gotta get the camera, I've gotta be right in there, because this day has come where the audience, you, need to come with me and be there with that animal. Gone are the days of sitting back on the long lens on the tripod and looking at wildlife way over there. Come with me. Share it with me, because humans want to save things that they love. The reason I've been put onto this planet is to save wildlife.
Welcome to Famous and Gravy. I'm Michael Osborne.
And I'm John Watts.
And on this show, we choose a famous figure who died in the 21st century, and we take a totally different approach to their biography. What didn't we know? What could we not see clearly? And what does a celebrity's life story teach us about ourselves? Today, Steve Irwin died 2006, age 44. Okay, so Amit is away, and we decided we needed an expert for this episode. I was fortunate enough to find John Watts. I asked John to send me his biography, and this is what he sent. John Watts is the chair of the Department of Reptilian Entertainment Studies at Southern North Dakota University, where his research explores the intersection of performative conservation, mid-2000s television enthusiasm, and the semiotics of khaki. A leading voice in the field, his work examines the myth-making of Australian eco-heroism and wildlife retaliatory encounters. His forthcoming book, Wrestling with Legacy, Steve Irwin and the Theatrics of Conservation, has been described by critics as, quote, startlingly specific. You were really proud of yourself when you wrote that. So John has no special expertise.
No, I'm a nobody.
Incorrect. And actually, I turned you on to Famous and Gravy. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think the first episode you listened to was Angela Lansbury.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And do you remember what you said to me after that episode?
Yeah, I said, I think you need a gay to do the show.
So that has stuck in my head for a long time because now I don't know, like, when do I need a gay? And what does he mean by that? And is Steve Irwin, do I need a gay for Steve Irwin?
I think so. You need a gay whenever. Okay. Whenever possible. Pull one in.
Do I need it, like, especially for Steve Irwin?
I think so.
So here's the thing. I did not know Angela Lansbury was a gay icon. I think that's why you said that.
Exactly.
Is Steve Irwin a gay icon?
I would not call Steve Irwin a gay icon.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
But I think like that there's a respect in the community for Mr. Irwin. That's all we needed.
Let's go for it. Category 1, grading the first line of their obituary. Steve Irwin, the khaki-clad wildlife stalker who won global fame with his televised death-defying crocodile stunts and whose booming voice made Crikey in a ripe Australian accent an international catchword, was killed by a stingray yesterday while filming a documentary at the Great Barrier Reef off Australia's northeast coast. He was 44.
If I could summarize this first sentence in one word, it would be reductive.
Reductive. Oh, wow. Okay, so you're coming out of the gates critical? I had the exact opposite reaction.
Okay.
I thought this was like 11 out of 10.
Oh, God.
I love this.
I don't like it.
Let's hear it. Why not? What's wrong?
First of all, we hit khaki clad. Okay, accurate.
Perfect.
I'm here for the great.
Yes.
We know this is the uniform. You know, he was a little like Steve Jobs or Richard Simmons in that way. We only saw him in this getup.
Good comparisons.
Okay, televised death-defying crocodile stunts feels like this man had 6 seasons of a television show about nature conservation. It was much more than just kind of wrestling crocodiles to me. I know they called it Crocodile Hunter, but and I guess that was sort of the initial gimmick. Yeah. But there was just so much more to him than that.
In other words, televised death-defying crocodile stunts makes it sound like that's the only thing that the Crocodile Hunter was about.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Like that just wasn't part of his entire ethos. And then I think booming voice and ripe Australian accent, catchword Crikey, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that definitely sums him up in a lot of ways, but I think they wasted a lot of space with booming voice and ripe Australian accent. I don't even really agree that his voice was booming. I would say it was enthusiastic.
Yeah.
They could have said zealous.
Okay.
Fervent.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else but booming.
I see that point. Damn, okay, wow. Okay, I'm going to defend some of this. You have made some very valid points. I'm coming down. Let me give the case for khaki-clad wearing wildlife stalker. I like stalker.
You like stalker?
Well, I think he is kind of a stalker. He's a little bit antagonistic. I don't like stalking, but I do think that, like, to describe him as a wildlife stalker is kind of clever. You're giving me a look.
I just feel like stalker has such a negative connotation. Well, sort of like where do we go from there? No. I mean, it was called hunter, stalker. I mean, like, but it was almost like they looked for a synonym for hunter. They were like, oh, you know what? We can't say that twice. So
look, okay, stalker in the real world is obviously a negative thing overall, but wildlife stalker, I mean, that does. Let me back up. They check some very big boxes here. Khaki-clad, Crikey, ripe Australian accent, international, death-defying. I mean, I do think that there's a lot of essential Steve Irwin boxes checked. You're poking at the nuance, which I think is appropriate and is okay.
I'm poking. I'm going to poke this nuance. But also, do we need to say that he was killed by a stingray? The man handled crocodiles and venomous snakes for a living. And then he's killed by one of the more docile sea creatures in the... This is what they put in petting zoos.
This is true. This is true.
SeaWorld. Like, this is not... I feel like they're doing him dirty. You know, so, okay. And then finally, they waste a lot of real estate on giving us the full XY coordinates of where he died. Yeah. The Great Barrier Reef in Australia's north... I mean...
So you think it's superfluous? There's way more in here than we did.
Just say the Great Barrier Reef, we got it.
Like a true academic, you are poking at all the little itty-bitty holes.
Oh, and don't get me started on some of the missing commas in here. They're not even really giving me great grammar.
All right. What's your score? Let's just grade this. What is your score?
4.
Wow. I'm giving this an 8. I disagree with your stance. I think that, yes, booming voice is the wrong phrase. They said a lot of stuff they didn't have to say exactly, but I do think he is death-defying. I do think the visual is that of a man who is khaki-clad. You know, you hear Crikey and you think Steve Irwin.
Yes.
And they have to get the nature of the death, because it was, even though maybe not quote unquote surprising, it was sudden. It wasn't how we thought he was going to go.
100%.
So we all predicted something else for Steve's demise.
Exactly. And so did he.
In the wild. And yeah, seriously. So I actually feel like we needed to say, this is important information, that we lost him to a stingray.
Okay. I could say that, and maybe that's all right.
But you're sticking with your 4?
I do. I'm sticking with that 4. Okay. I think they did him dirty, and I'm not here for that.
All right. 4 and an 8. Let's move on.
I'm Steve Irwin pilled. I can't. Nobody's going to change my mind.
Category 2, 5 things I love about you. Here, John and I will develop a list of 5 things that offer a different angle on who this person was and how they lived. Why don't you lead us off?
All right, wonderful. Nature show disruptor.
Nice. Okay, say more.
Yeah, nature shows were not sort of up close and personal with wildlife before this show. So he really changed the way nature shows could be done. We had David Attenborough.
Yeah.
And we had Marty Stouffer's like Wild America.
Yeah.
They took this sort of like observational, like poetic approach, like long lens, and also weren't focusing on these reptiles that were scary. They were looking at, birds and like things that are beautiful. And it had incredible cinematography and insightful commentary and all of that, but Steve Irwin was like hands-on, energetic, adventurous.
She's a little bit grumpy, this girl. You know what? You have shockingly little control over that animal. Yeah. Well, have a look at that for tooth structure. She's got the capacity to tear your legs off. Yeah, well, I think you're in the worst situation right now. She's really cute, though. Like, she's got the big Betty Davis eyes, cute little bottom, and she's hissing. That's a sign of aggression. That's like, don't muck with me.
Okay, good. Yeah. And you're the one that's irritating it on national TV.
Absolutely.
And I think that also was this brilliance of the cameraman. An editor of his films was John Stainton.
Yeah, his buddy, Yeah,
his buddy John, who got in this sort of, I feel like he got his inspiration for film from like the show Cops.
Totally. I was thinking about like, Steve Irwin, this whole researching this episode inspired me to think a lot about 90s TV.
Yeah.
And I wrote down David Attenborough meets Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is like, there is actually an aesthetic in the 90s with Cops, with Steve Irwin, with Jackass, of what I wrote, and this overlaps, is right up in there.
Yeah.
Right up in there. And this, I think I need to bring this up early. The South Park impersonation of him?
Yeah.
I'm going to take my thumb and stick it up its butt, and that's going to get this snake all excited. That is the aesthetic.
Oh boy, he is pissed off now.
Go, dude, go.
I'm going to jam my thumb in its butthole now. This should really piss it off. Oh yeah, that pissed it off all right. I got to be careful.
This guy rules. I tell you guys.
To use your language, disrupting. This was not how nature documentaries were done.
Right.
Heretofore. I mean, he is a precursor for so many like TikTok stars. He creates an aesthetic that we then imitate in a lot of different formats and categories of entertainment, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, right up in there, nature documentary disruptor.
Exactly.
Okay, I love it. And I'll say one more thing. I want to talk about this more in a later category, about whether or not that is an effective form of raising awareness. That is his case, right?
Yeah.
Is that like, I'm going to take you right up in there, right? Like, I need to avoid.
That's a good one. You did a good job.
Thanks. I was channeling it.
Yeah.
But it is his theory of the case that by doing that, I bring you in proximity and you develop a relationship with wildlife, even apex predators, even otherwise unlovable organisms like crocodiles and snakes. That's debatable. And I think that's a real question about his legacy.
Potentially misguided, but that is exactly what he thought.
Okay, let's come back to that later.
Happening.
Yeah, perfect one to lead us off. Okay, I'll take number 2. I just wrote inner child. We all talk about our inner child. He never develops an outer adult. Like, he is a big kid through and through, and he's got childlike energy. You see some of this in his kind of roughhousing attitude, I mean, so obviously he's willing to hop out of a car and chase after wildlife and very kind of rough and tumble. He's also a surfer. He's really, really into MMA fighting. He was a rugby player. Yeah. All of these are like kind of, I don't know, big dumb animal boy things in a way, you know what I mean? And then more than anything, and this is where I'm going to get a little sentimental, I think his inner child also holds true to a sense of nature connectedness. And I think children are born with this, right? And one of my grand strategy for raising my kids when all else fails is let's go outside. And it's amazing how kids respond to Mother Nature. That is the thing that he never outgrows that I think none of us should ever outgrow. You know, if there's anything I really admire about him, it's that he doesn't have this division between the real human world and the nature world. Like, he stays true to a sense of nature connectedness, which, for what it's worth, there's an unbelievable amount of research out there about how nature connectedness is correlated with positive psychology.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an inner child thing.
Yeah, I think it's like they would say, you know, our proximity to trees is important.
Like forest bathing.
Yeah, and now, exactly, forest bathing.
That's a thing.
Or no, and if you're, you know, you see it now in social media, it's like people, if people are getting too wound up about the internet, people say, go touch grass.
Totally.
They're like, just go outside.
I believe in that.
And that is true.
Yeah.
100%. It's a grounding phenomenon.
And I think no matter, like, you don't necessarily have to have the same relationship to wildlife that Steve Irwin does to recognize that, no, God, no. Yeah, I saw you flinch.
I don't think we could.
I don't think anybody could. But I do think that that is the, like, core quality that is his attractive power.
Yes.
Right? That we're not afraid of hugging animals or whatever. So that's my thing, number 2. What do you have for number 3?
I said fear of parrots.
Now, okay, is there any animal out there that you can't handle? Is there an animal that you just can't deal with?
Parrots.
What do you mean parrots?
I don't do parrots, mate.
What's wrong with parrots? I can handle parrots. You just
parrots.
What?
Aren't you scared of parrots? First thing they do is they, you know, suck you in with hello cocky, and you go in, whack, they're hanging off your nose, try to pull your nose off.
This is the one animal he's afraid of.
This is the one animal he's afraid of. He's actually afraid of parrots a little bit, which makes, I think, him human. Look at this person who's just like running up, like just fully grabbing snakes.
Venomous animals.
And
scorpions and all kinds of stuff.
Only grabbing crocodiles by the head. But he's afraid of parrots. He said this in a 2002 interview with Scientific America. He's also said this on Conan O'Brien. They had these powerful beaks, and that one time he had a pet parrot that bit him on the nose. Like right in the septum.
Yes.
And it just made him gush blood. And he said that I'm just really uneasy around parrots. And I was like, thank God. Thank God this man is like,
we found your Achilles heel.
We found it. And it's
a toucan.
It is a parakeet.
So this is the thing you love about him, is that he's afraid of parrots?
I needed him to be
vulnerable
and fearful of something for me to connect with him in a way.
That makes sense. There's a notable lack of parrots on his show.
You don't see many of them, and now we know why.
All right, I'll take number 4.
Yes.
Unless there's more you wanted to say on the parrots.
I mean, I also like it because I once broke up with a guy because he had a parrot.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah. Just a funny story. Like, I didn't break up with them. We went on one date, and then I called him, and then we were talking on the phone, and I heard this, like, in the background. And then I was like, what was that? What was that? He was like,
he's off the list.
He's like, that was my pet parrot. And I was just like, click. Yeah. Never again.
Nice.
So anyway,
okay.
You go next.
So that's beautiful. All right, I'll bring up the next one. No, number 4, if I may.
Yes, please.
Okay. I wrote Journey to the Far Side. And I was thinking about the Far Side cartoon. I grew up loving Gary Larson. He's one of my heroes. And one of the things I always loved about Gary Larson was the way he would sort of toggle between anthropomorphizing, where he would give animals human qualities and put them in a human setting, or the other way around. He would take human culture and civilization and map on animalistic characteristics, right?
Yes.
I feel like Steve Irwin is doing sort of a similar thing. I almost called this Raised in a Zoo, because he was actually literally raised in a zoo.
Yes.
And this is why the man's, social norms are not what they might be. To be raised in a zoo means to be brought up in a controlled artificial environment. This is what, according to the internet, often referring to a wild animal that has been reared in captivity, lacking the natural skills and instincts needed to survive in the wild due to not experiencing a typical habitat and social interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Irwin is a kind of wild animal raised in a zoo that was released onto the world.
Yes.
And there's something Gary Larsonian about that. It's not clear if I'm watching a man act like an animal or an animal act like a man. this is why Gary Larson was so brilliant, but also why Steve Irwin is I think anybody who is this enthusiastic about wildlife is trying to make the point that our distinction between the animal kingdom and humans is artificial. The idea that it's very far apart, that we are actually on a far side, is all in our minds, right? And that I thought about this a lot in a previous life when I was an earth scientist, that human exceptionalism is inarguable, but there's actually way more in common than we realize in terms of our instincts and in terms of our behavior as organisms.
Well, yeah. And I think you're kind of touching on 2 points here where he was this sort of wild Tarzan, but I think he also, gave us more insight into the sort of human side of these, at least the crocodilians, talking about how they're sort of romantic.
Yeah.
Like in their courting of each other, and they protect their young. And he connected a lot of dots for us.
100%. I think, his wife in the book, which I think you and I both read, Steve and me, like talks a lot about his sort of sixth sense. Like they could be out driving and he'd be like, there's going to be animals over here, park the car, I'm going to run out there and find them. Like he had this intuition that for me is a kind of like, it's nice to be reminded that yes, humans are different from all the other organisms, but not as different as we think. Right. And I think that's his point. And I think that's where I'm going with his journey to the far side.
You don't have to take it as far as anthropomorphizing animals, but you can at least see the similarities.
Exactly. Similarities, not differences. All right, why don't you take number 5?
Okay, I put Fired Up Zen.
Oh, say more. I love this.
Okay, so Steve was this notoriously intense person.
Yeah.
And, there's just shots of him like just holding a tiny lizard. And it's right in front of his face. So you look behind the lizard and his eyes are just like almost crossing. They're so intense. Like it was like this. I was like, did the drugs just kick in?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah.
Just from this tiny lizard, he's losing his mind. But he was also really into meditation. It was very specific what he would do. He looked into a fire at night.
Yeah.
And this was called fire gazing for him. And I think it has a shamanic tradition across cultures, including Native Americans and the Celtic, Siberian practices.
Oh, you looked into this.
I was really curious about fire gazing. And I was like, is this, where else is this practice?
Oh, this is good, John.
So they would stare into flames to receive visions, communicate with spirits, or enter altered states of consciousness. And Steve did this. One of the more important connections with fire gazing, and Steve was after he did some fire gazing, he ran, this was in the book, just ran up to Terry afterward and realized that he wanted to have children.
Yeah.
And he was like, we got to have children immediately.
Yeah.
The fire told me. The fire said we got to have kids. And I love that. Like, I try to meditate on a daily basis, and to see how other people do it is just so fascinating to me. And to see someone who's so intense try to take it down a couple notches every once in a while is inspiring.
I'm really glad you drew attention to this because he doesn't slow down.
No.
Ever. And I mean, he talks about like, I'm going to have a young life. He talks about like, I'm going to have a premature death.
He thought he'd die at 40.
Yeah, right. He did not expect to make it past 40. And he is sort of self-aware of his inability to just chill.
Yeah.
Except when it comes to the fire.
Yeah.
Like that is the one moment where he can enter into a Zen-like trance.
Right. And it's hypnotic to him. And so it allowed him to kind of slow down and think through things rather than just kind of moving at this furious pace every day, which was what he was sort of notorious for. He just never stopped moving.
Yeah. No, he's restless. He's thoroughly restless and bursting out of his skin. That's a really good call because it does sort of stand in contrast to the rest of his, habits in life.
I would never know that he was meditating.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it makes sense now that I know.
Nice one, John. All right. So, okay, let's recap. Number 1, you said nature show disruptor, and I tagged that with right up in there. Number 2, I said inner child.
Mm-hmm.
And number 3, you said parrot fear? Fear of parrots?
Fear of parrots.
Fear of parrots. Number 4, I went with journey to the far side. And number 5?
Fired up Zen.
Fired up Zen. Love that list.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Let's take a break.
Weight loss. It needs to be fast and sustainable. Noom GLP-1 starts at just $149 and ships to your door in 7 days. Take it from Lauren, who lost 22 pounds on Noom.
If I come off of the GLP-1, it's not going to automatically make my weight yo-yo back.
$149 GLP-1s? Now that's Noom smart. Get started at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. Individual results may vary. Not all customers will medically qualify for prescription medications. Compounded medications are not reviewed by the FDA for safety, efficacy, or quality.
This new year, why not let Audible expand your life by listening? Explore over 1 million audiobooks, podcasts, and exclusive Audible originals that'll inspire and motivate you. Tap into your well-being with advice and insight from leading professionals and experts on better health, relationships, career, finance, investing, and more. Maybe you want to kick a bad habit or start a good one. If you're interested in learning how to master your emotions and hearing scientifically backed advice for using your emotions as a tool, may I suggest Shift by psychologist and bestseller author Dr. Ethan Kross? Trust me, listening on Audible can help you reach the goals you set for yourself. Start listening today when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Category 3, One Love. In this category, John and I will each choose one word or phrase that characterizes this person's loving relationships. First, we will review the family life data. So there's one marriage to Terry in 1992. Steve was about 29. It's a real love at first sight kind of story. She happened to be traveling in Australia. She was into cougar rescue in Oregon, and she had an American friend bring her over, and they, on a whim, went to this museum. She saw Steve, was taken with him, and then a courtship of sort ensued.
I got so lucky in 1992 when she walked into the zoo, and I'm doing a crocodile demonstration. I looked in the crowd. I'd been in the bush for 2 years, mate, catching crocs. Haven't seen any Sheilas. Come back. So, I was hungry, and come back and I'm doing a croc demo, and I look into the crowd and I see her and I'm like, to feed the croc, She stayed back and started talking to me, and that was it. Head over heels in love.
It's so awkward.
It's awkward. It's a bizarre mating ritual here.
It was very strange. He brings her back the next day to work at the zoo.
Yeah. They connect
That's a
over.
date?
Well, that's the thing, is that they're clearly kindred spirits.
They come together and she's totally all in.
Yeah.
She's all into this. She's like, oh, you want me to shovel poop?
You're my counterpart. I'm
Let's
into
do that. Forget about coffee. Who needs a latte when you have this duck poop?
Let's go jump on some crocodiles together, which is what they did during their honeymoon.
He doesn't call her for a month after that?
I know. Well, it was a different time. All right, so Steve died at 44, so they were married about 15 years. They had 2 children, one daughter, one son, and the whole family carries on the legacy today. There is now a show called Crikey. It's the Irwins. Did you watch any of this?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's cute.
Yeah. I mentioned already that he was raised in a zoo. He idolized his mom and dad, and his dad was a real pioneer in terms of catching crocs. Steve jumped his first croc at age 9, apparently loved his family quite a bit. What did you write down for a word or phrase?
My word is legacy.
Interesting. Say more.
Okay, so his dad creates this sort of reptile emporium to support his hobby and conservation of these animals, and then kind of hands it to Steve.
Yeah.
And Steve kind of just takes the reins and turns it into reptile sanctuary. Now it's the Australian Zoo. It builds. When he starts to have kids, he sort of shifts his idea of his life's purpose from just conservation on his own to then I think he actually says kind of handing the football over to his kids, and his life goal is that they'll take it, run with it, just like he did from his parents. And so it seems like that's the thread or the through line for him.
It's sort of the whole point in a way, it feels like, right? I mean, the whole point of family in his mind is the cause.
Right. And I think that, like even when he says we need to have kids to Terry, it was basically because who are we going to give this away to? Yeah. So I think that was my one word.
I love it. Okay, I got a little bit more poetic here.
Okay.
I ended up going with Adonis and Aphrodite.
Oh.
Greek myths.
Okay.
I had to be reminded of these. Here's what Wikipedia has to say about the Adonis and Aphrodite myth. In Greek mythology, Adonis was the mortal lover of the goddess Aphrodite. He was considered to be the ideal of male beauty in classical antiquity. The myth goes that Adonis was gored by a wild boar during a hunting trip and died in Aphrodite's arms as she wept. His blood mingled with her tears and became the anemone flower. Aphrodite declared that Adonia festival to commemorate his tragic death, celebrated by women every year in midsummer. During this festival, Greek women would plant gardens of Adonis, small pots containing fast-growing plants, which they would set on top of their houses in the hot sun. The plants would sprout, but would soon wither and die. Then the women would mourn the death of Adonis, tearing their clothes and beating their breasts in public display of grief. Okay, here's why I went with this. One, he's a very handsome man.
Oh.
Yes, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if I'd go Adonis, but he's an attractive man.
He's 90s hot. I would say he's like a Los Angeles 4 and a Tallahassee 10.
Okay, that's fine. So we're somewhere in the middle. So it's not just his attractiveness. It's also the way you use the word in your mock bio, mythologized. And I think that's where I was going with, like, it's actually very similar to your legacy thing, that I do think that there is a Steve Irwin mythology. His life and his family life are almost fairy tale. I mean, it got a Greek tragedy element because he dies so young.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is a kind of immortality because of the legacy, right? And I also think that there's a whole family of plants, apparently, that will soon wither and die. They'll like grow and be bright and then they go away. One thing I learned, I guess, in the research for Steve Irwin was he was a very involved father, and it's sort of hard to figure out. On one hand, he thought he was going to die young. His wife had to know this was a possibility because he is in proximity to these death-defying acts. Everybody's caught off guard. Everybody's still mourning him. But, like, were we expecting Steve Irwin to make it to 65?
Yeah.
Right? And I do think that this life is mythologized somehow. It's symbolic, right?
Oh, yeah. Looking at video of the Australian Zoo, it's a shrine. To him. There's this sort of deification of him because of this tragic death. And I think his family doesn't disconnect from that at all.
Quite the opposite.
Never tried to make that. Yeah, like look at the title of their show, Crikey.
Yeah.
It's the Irwins, like they're like, Steve's still here.
His spirit is very much still with us, which is why I was looking for a Greek myth.
Beautifully apt.
Kind of works, right?
It really is. There's a lot of post-mortem buildup of his life and legacy.
Mythologizing, to use your word.
Mythologizing of it.
Yeah. I sort of feel like, I don't know, sometimes with celebrity, mythologizing is problematic. Like we put people on pedestals in a way we really shouldn't. I don't know that I have the same level of discomfort with Steve Irwin mythologizing. Not because he deserves praise, but his, I don't know, persona and the caricature of him and the memory of him, it's such an outlier.
It's so clean.
Totally.
It's pure.
Pure is a good word.
There's a purity in him you don't see in a lot of celebrities.
I think it's the inner child thing that I was saying earlier too. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no Steve Irwin behind the music. There's no tell-all. Where's the tell-all of like Steve Irwin and him
Steve Irwin, the Coke dealer or something?
Seriously, there's nothing. There's just nothing out there.
That's absolutely true. It's very hard to find the dirt, Right. I mean, I think there's controversy. There's the whole thing with how he was holding his infant son in the crocodile enclosure, which he came under a lot of heat for.
Right.
But this is a man who knows crocodiles, and I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he knew what he was doing in that moment, right? I understand why people would be freaked out by that, but everything he does freaks me out.
I think he's also, I don't know if this sort of I'm going to grab the snake even though I don't really need to kind of mentality just to show you and put some thrill into this show, if that would really fly today.
The word antagonist comes up sometimes, like he's antagonizing animals. I guess, his approach was controversial at the time. I mean, I read, think pieces that PETA put out.
Yeah.
Which they're going to do that. But, they made me think.
In the end, closer to the end, I think in 2002, he had the Antarctica trip where he really got some heat.
For sliding with penguins.
And molesting penguins.
Indeed.
Yeah, so I think it started to kind of catch up to him a little bit in his lifetime, but it was so new. I think that everybody was still sort of...
wrestling with their own discomforts around it.
Yeah, so I think he does get the benefit of timing, and I think there's definitely a sort of myth-making of his life.
Yeah.
Post-mortem.
Adonis and Aphrodite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on. Category 4, net worth. In this category, John and I each wrote down our numbers ahead of time. We're going to talk a little bit about our reasoning, and then we're going to look up the net worth number in real time to see who's closest. Finally, we will place Steve Irwin on the Famous and Gravy net worth leaderboard. Okay, I'm going to tell you just a little bit of my thinking because I suspect it's very similar to yours.
Okay.
Every time he was asked about money, he said, goes right back into conservation, right?
That's what I want with a gold-plated dunny.
Yeah, exactly.
Every cent that Terry and I earn goes straight back into conservation. Whether it be at the zoo or buying up conservation land around the world, there's no if, buts, mights or maybes. We both live and breathe for rescuing and saving wildlife and wildlife habitat. That is what makes us tick.
He was like, I want to make money because I believe in this cause, and every bit of money is going back into this. It is just not clear how much he's keeping for himself, right? And how much is this set up through nonprofits versus for-profit companies? And you have to imagine the money's flowing in, then he dies at a young age unexpectedly. Kind of unexpected. I feel like I have to put unexpectedly in quotes every time I talk about his death. You know, it was weird the way he died by a stingray, but it was
unexpected.
But I mean, the other thing to say is he is an international star on TV. He basically is the face of the animal planet, and he's doing all kinds of commercials, promos, late night talk shows. I mean, he is a hot
He
item.
had a movie.
It was a successful movie.
Yeah.
So I just took a stab.
Okay.
So John Watts wrote down 15 million.
Michael Osborne wrote down 8 million.
Okay. The actual net worth of Steve Irwin, 10 million. So right in between.
Right in between.
I'm a smidge closer, but you and I kind of both honed in at the right number-ish.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's become more valuable posthumously.
Oh, yeah.
And it does sound like Terry is a good businesswoman.
Yeah, I mean...
I think she even got like an award for it or something, right? Did you see that?
Yeah, I think that also now, you know, the show Crikey, it's the Irwins, started back in the 2018. They're making a lot more money now. Yeah.
So both the kids are like TV personalities with like different personality. But anyway, we're just focusing on Steve. So 10 million, that feels about right. Once upon a time, this was a magic number on Famous and Gravy because this was my goal. And I've since readjusted my expectations. I'm probably not going to get there. But let's place Steve Irwin
on our leaderboard.
On the Famous and Gravy net worth leaderboard. So this puts him in a 9 or 10-way tie, position number 55. He is tied with Roger Ebert, John Prine, Margaret Thatcher, Florence Henderson, Maya Angelou, Louis Anderson, Leonard Cohen, Luke Perry, and Bill Russell.
A good group to be in.
It's a great group to be in, isn't it? Yeah. Go Steve Irwin. I'm happy to have like a little bit of international flavor in that crowd.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
He really brightens it up.
Okay. Wonderful. Well done, Steve. 10 million. Thank you for donating it to conservation. Let's move on. Category 5, Little Lebowski Urban Achievers.
They're the Little Lebowski Urban Achievers.
Yeah, the Achievers.
Yes, and proud we are of all of them.
In this category, John and I will each choose a trophy, an award, a cameo, an impersonation, or some other form of a hat tip that shows a different side of this person.
You go first.
Okay. So I mentioned the South Park impersonation earlier. So instead, there are 2 organisms named after Steve Irwin. One, in 1997, while on a fishing trip off the coast of Queensland with his father, Steve discovered a new species of turtle. Herpetologist John Cann named it Irwin's turtle, Allie Arrazola, in honor of Steve. And then there was also, and this was after he died, another newly discovered Austrian animal, a species of air-breathing land snail, and they called it Crikey Steve Irwin. That's the Latin name for it, Crikey Steve Irwin.
You're lying about that.
I'm not lying. It was named after him in 2009.
Somebody named that snail in a sweepstakes. They let a 12-year-old name that snail.
Crikey Steve Irwin. Look, there's nothing that makes me happier than scientists like sort of amusing themselves.
Oh, they thought they ate. They thought they ate it up. They did a toast.
Yeah.
They thought they
High
nailed
five.
it.
Crikey Steve Irwin. But it also does show a different side because these are slow organisms. This is a turtle and a snail. These are synonymous with not moving fast. The exact opposite of Steve Irwin.
Yeah.
You know?
No, but that's very insightful.
Wouldn't you like this, though? I mean, so people talk about, like, you know, sometimes scientists or famous people will be recognized, they'll have stars or galaxies named after them. I would so rather have some obscure...
Yeah, the ugliest thing out there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I want the nastiest...
Be immortalized in some rare species.
The John Watts anglerfish cousin. I want like just something that lives at the bottom of the ocean, the cold, dark heart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So what did you have for this category?
Okay. I don't this. absolutely makes me laugh out loud every time I watch it. I love this ESPN.
Yes.
And I don't even believe in sports, but this is funny. ESPN, this is Sports Center commercial.
Yeah.
Where he makes a cameo and he's talking to the host of the show, trying to listen
John Anderson, I believe.
I don't know this person.
He's a
but
broadcaster.
Yeah, I'm sure he's great.
And it's the Florida Gator.
Yeah, and he's pitching him something. The Florida Gator, mascot comes out of the elevator, and Steve's just like, "Oh, look at him! Isn't he a beaut?"
Listen, Steve, I hear you. I mean, if it's up to me, right, we'd have the crocodile hunting 24/7.
Exactly. Every single time I do my bootlaces up, I'm staring death right in the eyes. How many baseballers are doing that?
I'm with you, then, sure.
Crikey! Stand back, John. Have a go at the size of this beauty. I got him, mate.
Steve, don't.
Woo, isn't he gorgeous?
It just makes me laugh so hard every time. And it's not easy to make me laugh with a commercial, but that one gets me. And I just think Steve was in on the joke.
Yes.
He knew that it was ridiculous.
Yes.
And he knew, like, this is my moneymaker. I know I'm ridiculous and crazy. And you know what? I'm going to lean in.
There's also something interesting about his relationship with sports entertainment. I mean, why would Steve Irwin be on ESPN? There's an athleticism
Very
about
athletic,
him,
yeah.
right? And so it's funny because you don't look at a nature show host and think athlete, but it's kind of there, right?
Oh,
with him.
yeah.
So, which makes him relevant and perfect for that ESPN commercial.
Oh, yeah.
Did you watch Animal Planet or Crocodile Hunter much?
Oh, God, yeah.
Did you?
Oh, I was on top of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a big, I had a whole room full of reptiles growing up. Yeah. And I was real weird. And
really?
So I had snakes and frogs. I wanted to be a herpetologist. If you asked me when I was a kid what I wanted to be when I grew up, as a herpetologist.
You're kidding, John.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of this.
Yeah. So I loved that show. And I watched Animal Planet on a loop. We had cable, so that was my childhood.
Wow.
Was watching Animal Planet. Yeah. So
wow.
I loved this show. Was really into it. I volunteered at the zoo.
Wow.
In high school. I was going to, go off and do the thing, and now look at me.
Do you still feel kind of, I don't know, interest or attraction, or do you still enjoy the company of reptiles?
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
I love going to a pet store or I'll go to the reptile house at the zoo.
I'll be down.
Even though it's kind of sad, I'll still go. And and I have a friend who is a herpetologist who, likes to show me pictures
of snakes
and lizards. And so I'm still into it, but it was basically how I learned to read as a kid was reptile and amphibian books. So,
no way!
Yeah,
so that's so cool, man.
Yeah.
But I love that.
But I just think his audience was vast.
That's the thing. His appeal is sort of viral in a way. It's amazing how many people. And I guess some of it is the death-defying thing, but it really is his passion. And it really is the way he just pops off the screen and his eyes are wide open. And he is a kind of cartoonish, but he's also, he's so endearing. I think it's the childlike quality. I think it's the purity.
Yeah.
That is his, sort of superpower.
I think that is a magnet, for anyone. I mean, his wife said, when they took the very first documentary video, it was John Staten said, the camera loves Steve.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely true. And therefore, we love Steve.
It's a little hard to fake that. Okay, let's take another break.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. One purchased equals one donated. Now go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY at checkout.
Ready to prioritize yourself in the new year? Your skin is a great place to start. Dime Beauty, founded by a master esthetician, is more than just a skincare company. With 4 skin-conscious categories, skincare, beauty, body care, and fragrance, Dime offers simple, spa-worthy products that will help you enter 2025 with confidence. Whether you're revitalizing your regimen with nourishing products or building one from scratch, Dime makes it easy. The Work System, our all-in-one best-selling routine, includes a cleanser of your choice, toner, serums, and moisturizers, taking the guesswork out of skincare for your healthiest, happiest skin yet. Dime's commitment to clean ingredients and sustainable packaging ensures every product is as gentle on your skin as it is on the planet. With thousands of glowing 5-star reviews and a loyal community, the results speak for themselves. Revive your skin and give yourself the routine refresh you deserve by visiting dimebeautyco.com. That's dimebeautyco.com. Your best skin awaits.
Okay, category 6, words to live by. In this category, we each choose a quote. These are either words that came out of this person's mouth or was said about them. You kick us off.
I just really liked this quote, and it sort of piggybacks on what you just said earlier. Terry says this in her book. I believe we struck a chord among Australians because Steve wasn't a manufactured TV personality. He actually did head out into the bush to catch crocodiles. He ran a zoo. He wore khakis. Among all the people of the world, Australians have a fine sense of the genuine. Steve was the real deal.
Oh, I love that.
I absolutely agree with her. I think this guy was really actually like this.
Her observations of Australian culture I find really interesting. There's that passage in the book where she talks about mates, and it's like Australian male friendship. She's like, there's no American comparison for this. And she's crazy too.
Oh, absolutely wild.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's be very clear.
She was doing cougar conservation.
The large cats that attack you need to be saved.
Terrifying cats.
Yes.
So yes, she's also wild.
I love that. It's a great quote. Okay. You want me to give you mine?
Yes, please.
All right. Steve said, I believe that education is all about being excited about something. Seeing passion and enthusiasm helps push an educational message. There was a time where I was super into geology. And if I could corner you for a moment and just talk about rocks, I would do it until I'd get a reaction out of somebody. And there's nothing more boring in the world than rocks.
Oh my God, Michael was your worst nightmare at a dinner party.
Pretty much. But I remember saying this to a friend of mine in college when my niece was first getting into like hiking and camping. I was like, it's really cool that she's doing this. And my friend said, yeah, it's really cool to see anybody get into anything. And it was kind of a funny, like, toss aside comment, but I'm like, you're absolutely right. I love watching people get into their thing.
Yes.
And I may or may not be into your thing, but if you are passionate about it and you have a lot of enthusiasm for it, then that does push an educational message. So I do think that what he's getting at here is the kind of emotional component of intellectual curiosity. And those are words to live by.
He's really getting at the sort of like andragogical principle of motivation.
The what principle?
Of the like, adult learning.
Oh.
So like
I don't know anything about that.
Motivation is such a big piece of learning. If you're allowed to find something that you're excited about rather than being sort of forced into it, your brain actually becomes more spongy. So that's why his breadth of work becomes wider and wider. Like he's not just doing reptiles. In the end, he's doing whales. He's doing, just kind of, you can see him growing. And that's really inspiring. I'm also a little jealous because I'm one of those people who I think I have a new interest every 2 weeks.
Yeah. But that's okay. I mean, I think that if you are like, what I really hear in this quote and what you were just talking about is like the importance of being in touch with your own curiosity.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how easy it is to lose that. And it's amazing how unbelievably important it is. This is how I feel about my children. I really don't care what they're into. I just want them to be into things. Right. I just want them to feel curious.
Yeah.
And sometimes identifying, locating, and exploring your own curiosity is a lot more challenging than you would think because we get distracted by, all these other sort of cultural motivations for why we should be spending our time in different ways. I don't think it's a bad thing if your interests are scatterbrained, the way you just described them. Like that every 2 weeks you get interested in something else. So, I don't know. As long as you stay interested in things, that's great.
I think it's really important. What he's showcasing here is to learn not to have a shut-off valve for your curiosity.
Yeah.
Let it keep growing and showing you what else is out there.
Let's move on. Category 7, man in the mirror. Did this person like his reflection, yes or no? This is not about beauty, but rather a question of self-confidence versus self-judgment. You lead us off here. I have things to say, but I want to hear what you have to say.
I think, yes. I think he was proud.
He didn't look like an insecure man.
No.
Okay, so that was the one thing I was thinking about, though, is that there are moments of insecurity, and it's anytime he's not wearing khakis.
Is there anything in your wardrobe that's not khaki?
I got a pair of jeans.
Yeah?
And I'm constantly given shirts. I don't wear them. Basically, I got more car keys than you poke a stick at. How's this, though? What a kook. Like, this is so Australian.
right? It is at his wedding when he had to wear a tuxedo.
Yeah.
He's thoroughly uncomfortable. When he is like being paraded around in Hollywood, or when there's like award ceremonies, or he got invited to like a Clinton dinner, I think when Clinton was about to leave, he's like, no, I can't do it. And he's uncomfortable in cities. He's uncomfortable everywhere that's not nature.
Yes.
You know, it's sort of insecurity on some level.
Oh, yeah. I almost feel like one thing that sort of gave me one slice of negativity from this man was sort of surprising was a quote from, again, the Scientific American interview in 2002, where he says, crocodiles are easy. They try to kill and eat you. People are harder. Sometimes they pretend to be your friend first.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, damn. Okay.
Well, but that's not inaccurate.
No, it's not. But I just didn't expect. This came after a lot of the heat that he got for parading his son around the crocodiles in the Crocoseum and then the Antarctica trip.
Love that they called it a Crocoseum.
I'm obsessed with that name. We're making T-shirts. Merch is happening. I'm sure there is merch. But yeah, that made me think a little bit more about some insecurity he had around people.
Yes, and that's kind of obvious in a way, right? I mean, I think the whole inner child purity quality that we've been talking about, it is, sort of the misdeeds of humans that corrode our innocence and that cause us to form crusty layers around our inner child, right?
Exactly.
And I think he, rebuffed that. His whole life was about rebuffing that, and his whole mission was about rebuffing that. As his fame grows, you do see that discomfort rear its ugly head more and more.
Yeah, if you have a strong inner child, I don't know if you could see yourself past 40.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I think you do have to make peace with a certain cynicism.
Yeah.
That's certainly where I'm at in life.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no, it's true. I have always been fairly idealistic. And I do think that the older I get, the more you see age, the more you see people dying, the more you see institutions around society deteriorating and falling apart. I have had to absolutely make some peace with a more cynical side of me, and I don't want to lose touch with that inner child, but I think that is the dance of a longer life. And I can see why somebody like Steve Irwin would have had discomfort with that process.
Yeah. I think as we age, we're picking up layers, as you said, of crust.
Yeah.
And I think, he was
it
had
could
an
be
aversion.
Nice crust. It could be cakey crust. It could be like pie.
But I think that he had an aversion to that as well.
So we agree he liked his reflection.
I think he was solid with that reflection.
A yes and a yes. All right. Category 8. Coffee, cocktail, or cannabis. This is where we ask which one would we most want to do with our dead celebrity. I said there's no good answer here. One obvious answer would be Foster's around the campfire, to go back to your Zen campfire thing. But I actually would not want to be with him outdoors where any of his senses are dulled or compromised. I need him to be tuned to what is happening. So cannabis is out. There's way too many opportunities for paranoid reactions if we're outdoors. Obviously, this man needs no caffeine, so coffee's not going to work. So here's where I went. Jack and Coke on an airplane. Because this is, I think, his most inevitable but uncomfortable setting. He has to take a lot of flights. And I heard him in an interview talking about 14 hours going to the States is a nightmare. He's like,
I have to do a lot of plane flights.
Yeah.
And, I'm a handful. You can't hang your arm out the window and you can't stop and have a pee and look at the wildlife.
Yeah.
I like a good movie, but not 5 of them in a row.
And he can't read a book. This is Steve Irwin. He's not gonna lose himself in a novel. So the interviewer actually asks him, he's like, well, do you have conversations with people? He's like, usually I'm sitting next to John. We don't have anything to talk about. So he sounds like a man who has to fly a lot and hates it. And I picture him in his khakis in first class. And I like the idea of, you know what? Let's get some Jack and Coke. Let's get a little bit tipsy on the airplane with those itty bitty bottles and the flat Coke that the flight attendant is pouring. And I want to push on this question. Do you believe intimacy with nature is actually possible through the TV screen? His theory of the case is, I need to get right up in there and show you what these organisms are like so that you will love them the way I do, so that you will feel the way I do. I think what actually is happening is we are looking at a crazy man and right next to something that might take him out or sting him or bite him or pee on him or whatever it may be. He is the spectacle, not the organism. And I think he kind of sort of knows that, but I admire the intent. And I definitely think that by having a successful TV show, you can certainly say, I can do a lot in the name of conservation and environmentalism because I'm bringing in money and I can buy more land and I can protect more animals. Yes, but whether or not you are actually creating an intimate experience between the audience and wildlife, I'm just not sure it's possible through a TV screen. I don't care if you're Steve Irwin or David Attenborough or anybody. I feel like if it's being mediated through a screen, you lose the essential qualities, full stop.
Yeah.
I think Jack and Coke on an airplane, I think he would actually be forced to have that conversation with me. And I'd kind of like to see where it goes.
I love that. And I think you've really hit on the question that I have about Steve Irwin. In this meaning of this idea that he was going to make us fall in love with this rattlesnake that he's thoroughly pissed off and is going for his face, and it's like, this still looks terrifying, Steve. I don't know if this was really what you wanted.
You look like a 7-year-old playing with a gun.
You look terrifying right now. And this isn't making me fall in love with it. I want to run.
Yeah, and I know that's
I want to kill it.
There are moments where, have you seen that clip with him and the orangutan?
Yes.
It's very sweet.
It's very sweet.
And I do see his heart on display, even with the crocs and even with the apex predators and the animals that we are otherwise revulsed and terrified by. But I just am not sure it's possible through the vehicle he's trying to bring us in on.
Yeah, a lot of it felt like good for I, not for thy, where he was like, I'm going to go and mess around with all these animals, but what y'all need to do is leave them alone. Which sort of felt a little like a mixed message there.
It's a little contradictory if you click into it too much.
Yeah.
Right? And perhaps self-serving. I think it offered him a life and a lifestyle that he felt a sense of destiny and a lot of gratitude around. But whether or not it is actually furthering the mission the way he argued it was, I'm skeptical.
There is a study out there that does look at the correlation of people who engage with Steve Irwin and their likelihood to donate or support conservation. And they did find a positive correlation.
Oh, really?
In the Journal of Communication Studies.
I'll be damned.
Yeah, peer-reviewed. Okay, so basically you want to trap him.
I want to trap him. Because I don't
get him drunk.
I don't want to be, and the main reason is because of what I don't want. I don't want to be in an altered state in the bush with him, right? If I'm going to be with Steve Irwin, he would make me feel safe. But if he is in any way compromised, I'd be terrified. I can't handle myself. I need him to protect me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a perfect lead into, I said the same thing, but I did say, I know we probably want to take him down a notch.
We need mellow Steve.
We want to chill him out a bit and maybe get a little bit more depth about his ethos.
Yeah.
But I chose coffee.
Interesting.
In the bush.
Wow.
So
okay.
I don't want to slow him down. I want the full Irwin experience because I'm Irwin pilled. So I think our destination is the Burdekin River.
Okay.
And on the coast, it's about 800 miles north of Brisbane, where they first filmed that
Crocodile
pilot.
Hunter.
Yeah. And this is where I think I want to do coffee by the fire, do fire gazing. We center.
Yeah.
And then I want to take that coffee to go because this is a physical man. As you said, I think he had, if we're looking at the spectrum of multiple intelligences, he had a physical intelligence. He needed to be moving and active in order for his brain to engage and give you, I think, the entirety of his sentience.
I think that's a really good observation.
Yeah. So I think that was part of his MO. And I just want to experience him in the environment where he was at his best, at his peak. So I want to take that coffee to go and I want to go on the boat and I want to look for the crocodiles. Now I'm going to stay on the boat.
Sure.
He can do the thing.
You do you.
I'm looking, I'm watching.
Tackle away.
I'm asking questions
Sack that
on a megaphone. We have a walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
We're good. But I am at a safe distance.
Tell you what, drop me off here.
Steve, I got you on FaceTime. Yeah. Just keep going with that snake.
Yeah.
But I think that's his superpower was action combined with narration.
I love that. What I like about your choice compared with my Jack and Coke fantasy in first class on an airplane crossing the Pacific is that you are moving closer to his intuition wavelength. That would be exciting to observe firsthand.
Yeah.
The vibes of nature and the vibes of the animal kingdom, because he's all about vibrations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that would be exciting to experience firsthand.
Yeah.
That's a good one, John. Okay, I think we have arrived. The Vanderbeek. Final category named after James Vanderbeek, who famously said in Varsity Blues,
I don't want your life.
In that Varsity Blues scene, James makes a judgment that he does not want a certain kind of life based on a single characteristic. So here, John and I will form a rebuttal to anyone skeptical of how Steve Irwin lived. James Van Der Beek has a point when he says, I don't want your life, Steve Irwin. First of all, this is, I think, the youngest death we've done on Famous and Gravy. There's also everybody thinks you're crazy. That's not an easy thing he seems to relish that, and he is very comfortable with being described as an adrenaline junkie. He's like, yep, absolutely. And that is my drug.
I can't stop, mate. I'm on fire. I wake up in the morning and I'm on fire. I just can't do enough. It drives me crazy that I've got to go to sleep. Can't I film something at night?
You don't drink coffee?
No.
You don't drink alcohol? You don't smoke?
No. You're
just on a totally natural high.
No, I do adrenaline.
Big adrenaline addict.
Oh, a big time.
So those are pretty strong reasons to not want this life. And maybe there's more. Maybe the discomfort with crowds and with people and with humanity. But I actually think with those things acknowledged, there are some very compelling reasons to want this life. Where would you begin?
He found a soulmate.
Let's go with that as number one.
That's a big one.
He had a soulmate, yeah.
Those two were magnetically connected.
Totally. Cosmic. I'm sure there were moments of contention and strife like in any marriage, but my God, it looks like two people who, how did you find each other?
Yeah.
I'd go number two, I would say the inner child thing. I mean, I do think that there is a kind of risk in adhering to the innocence and naivete that comes with childish mind, but I don't know. I mean, the older I get, the more important I think it is to be in touch with your inner child. And it's a corny, difficult thing to talk about sometimes, but I find a lot of importance in the way that Steve Irwin embodied this overgrown kid persona.
Yeah. I would say that is true, but I think also he was able to have that because he was raised in a zoo.
Yes.
And I think he was a bit of a loner. I don't think he was lonely, but I think he was solitary.
Yeah.
He went out in the bush a lot by himself. And I think that
this is in the days before the Crocodile Hunter.
Content.
Yeah.
But
I don't see it as retreating from relationships.
No.
I do feel like the people who he loves and who loved him, nobody is unclear about any of that, including his kids. I think that love was communicated in his interpersonal life with his family and friends.
Yeah.
And I guess on the loneliness question, I'm with you. I couldn't do that. Yeah. I need more people. And so I'm not built like Steve Irwin. At the same time, I think that, as you said, I don't think he's lonely.
No, but I think you're getting at another why I'd want his life is I think he had this astounding loyalty to almost everyone and everything that he had sort of brought into his world. No matter what, it was unflinching loyalty to family, friends. He had the same camera crew. It just was
the same home.
The same home. Yeah, his family, his parents. It was just unshakable loyalty that I think is really, really impressive.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Well, is there anything else we would add to the list? I mean, the legacy, maybe. I don't know how important that is. I had a friend send me a podcast the other day about a book called Die With Zero. Have you heard of this book?
Yeah. There's a big anti-legacy movement.
Right.
And I'm here for that.
I guess I am too. I mean, I do think that you should enjoy the contributions you make before you die. But I think he did that. Whether or not you agree with the philosophy of how to go about this strategy towards conservation, he brought in a lot of money, he expanded the zoo, and he set it up so that his wife and his children could carry on the tradition.
Yeah, I do think that what it seemed to motivate him, at least toward the end, was this. I feel like legacy can be dangerous, and maybe this is what that book is pointing to, is that, if you're sort of like running on your fear of not having a legacy, it's exhausting. It impedes your ability to make really good connections. It makes a worse life. So
it's fear driven.
Yeah, it's fear driven. And there was a piece of him that felt a little bit like maybe that was the fear that there wasn't going to be a legacy after he left, and that it was all about, I'm going to make sure my kids take this legacy.
Yeah, there's a wrestling of it.
But it worked out. But I think, there's definitely a danger to living for legacy.
Yeah, you're right. It needs to be on the list, but not the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what I mean when I make the case for a Steve Irwin legacy is why James Van Der Beek should want this life, is that it's the right amount of emphasis on legacy, perhaps. All right, should we summarize then?
Yes.
Okay. So number 1, you said soulmate. Number 2, I said inner child. Number 3, you said loyalty. And number 4, the right amount of legacy. So with that, James Vanderbeek, I'm Steve Irwin, and you want my life. Speed Round, plugs for past shows.
You may not see a connection at all, but I saw Moonwalker, Neil Armstrong.
Oh!
Talk about a legacy. They're not the same.
But outlier.
Looking at the famous and gravy canon.
Yeah.
Maybe, I would say they're similar.
That, John.
in a
I think
way.
that's a great one. So that was episode 17, Modest Moonwalker, Neil Armstrong. You know, this is a weird one, but I'm going to go Betty White. Betty White actually wanted to be a park ranger, and she got to be an honorary park ranger. There is a little bit of that nature connectivity hovering over both Steve Irwin and Betty White. So that was episode 67, Golden Rose, Betty White.
Great call out.
Okay, here's a little preview for the next episode of Famous and Gravy. After her late 1960s breakthroughs and a string of pop hits in the early 1970s, the disco era sidelined her.
Nope. Need more.
Famous and Gravy listeners, we love hearing from you. If you want to reach out with a comment, question, or to participate in our opening quiz, email us at hello@famousandgravy.com. In our show notes, we include all kinds of links, including to our website and our social channels. Famous and Gravy is created and co-hosted by Amit Kapoor and me, Michael Osborne. This episode was produced by Allie Arrazola, thanks to John Watts, and original music by Kevin Strang. Thank you, and see you next time. Follow Famous and Gravy on the Wondery app. You can listen to more episodes early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Before you go, tell us about yourself by completing a short survey at Wondery.com/survey.